here at the Inkosi Luthuli Convention Center. We spoke earlier on with Mzwandile about the tumultuous time that also the political career of the late former minister would have taken and the turn at some point where things seemed to really be very difficult for him, and of course difficulties even as minister at some point as well. And someone who knows this particular time quite well is a former colleague of his, and that is Ivan Pillay. And this is someone that at some point he would then be, accused of fraud together with, and certainly a time that many of them continue to describe as a very difficult time in their careers, as they say they were trying to, serve the nation of South Africa. But he joins us now to talk about his reflections of somebody that, was not only a colleague, but also a friend, also somebody that would have offered guidance for him in his career at some point in time. So Mr. Pillay, thank you so much for your time this morning. We certainly do appreciate it. And you are here and to bid farewell to someone that you've worked very closely with, someone that you knew. Let's talk about this moment for you, because one can see just how difficult it is as well for you.
Well, Mr. Gordhan was larger than life. But we do have clearly marked smoking zones outside the main entrance and in the courtyards opposite. He's made a great contribution over the years from the 70s. And he's been involved in all facets of our liberation struggle. In the mass movement, in the underground. And we must remember that for long periods in the mass movement, you actually had to operate as if you were operating clandestine, especially during the states of emergency. The minister came through all of those periods. And when we began to transition to a negotiated settlement, again, his talents were recognized, and he was at the forefront of the negotiation phase. So he's come through a lot. I've known him from the 70s. I've known him through the underground years. During those underground years, we actually arranged for Pravin and two of his comrades, Yusuf Vauda and Vishu Prasad, to come clandestinely into Swaziland to meet with ANC leadership. It was organized, and we took them back into South Africa without a problem, showing the capability that Pravin's unit had. And there were times where our cadres were hosted by Pravin's unit. It's a unit we call Providence. In fact, a senior member of the ANC, Ibrahim, was inside the country and about to be arrested. And he was handed over by Mo Sheikh to Mr. Gordhan. He was then hidden in the country for many months until we could get him outside safely. So it became the logical thing that when we were thinking of Operation Vula, that we would draw this unit, which we call Providence, to be one of the important resources that we would leverage as we tried to locate a leadership inside the country of senior ANC people from outside and senior tested people from inside the country. He's played all of these roles, plus of course we know as a minister, and he has stood up. We know the part where he has stood up, and probably for about 10 years, He took everything flung at him, and he came out strong.
And before we even get to that part, as we see then, the procession making its way into this very venue where we are right now. These are live visuals. We are not very far from them, and we'll continue then to carry these visuals for you. But we're still in conversation with Mr. Ivan Pillay. Now, before we get to his time in government, to speak about, the time when he's in the liberation struggle, the fight for freedom, but he then gets at some point to serve in the steering committee during the CODESA, negotiations. Let's talk about how difficult was that time, because a lot of people who reflect on this moment talk about the challenges of having to negotiate at the time, but also making sure that you really do chart South Africa on a path towards freedom.
Yeah, it was a crucial time. It is a time where everything could have gone wrong, and the country could be engulfed in mayhem and destruction. We should pay tribute to the leaders of that time, all from Nelson Mandela and others to Pravin Gordhan and many, many others. The great thing about that, from across the divide, is that you had leaders who were prepared to think about the country. And everybody understood that we would have to make compromises so that we could avoid a catastrophe and so that we could move forward. That's a great thing. It's sad that when you look past that period, we think less and less about the country. We think less and less about the people. We think about my group, my province, my party. And we think about just myself. Whether it is on big things, it can even be on small things, even when you are driving in traffic. We think less and less about the whole. So this was remarkable. And a person like Pravin came through the ranks. His mettle has been tested. He's understood everything. He's understood the balance of forces. And he was a very capable person. And that capability was recognized. He became one of the chairs of the working group. And later on, he became a key player in designing the Constitution. So we must pay homage to many people, and today we pay homage to Pravin for that role that he played.
Now, when it comes then to the moment that you describe as, the years that he withstood everything that was thrown at him, you were among those that was with him during that time. And you are facing these very serious charges, which later get withdrawn. Let's talk about that moment and how all of you were navigating it personally, because we were watching it as the media unfolding and the country and watching it unfolding it before our eyes. But for all of you personally, what was it like and what did it mean?
All right, firstly, let me say it wasn't a moment. It was 10 years.
Yeah.
And it is 10 years of onslaught that we suffered from our own government, our own people. We're not talking about the apartheid state. But I do want to go at least 2-3 years before that, because the signs were there, at least 2-3 years before 2014, that things were not going well, that the tender system was already being undermined, that the state was not getting value for money. And I dare say even now, we rarely get value for money. Money is not well spent. So during those earlier periods, we tried to address the procurement system. And you will see references in Pravin Gordhan's speeches at Parliament to how we're going to try to fix the procurement system. This is very, very early on. And I think that showed to the people who were capturing the state, look, here was a problem. The second was that SARS was a formidable institution. Whether friend or foe, whether ANC or not ANC, we made sure that everybody complies. And what we've got to understand is that in that process, where you're not favoring anybody, you make a lot of enemies. And if you don't have the real support of the politicians, where you have a permissive culture that allows these people, even when they've been expelled from SARS, or taxpayers who've been taken to court, they all start complaining all around the sides, and they start to meet with each other. Now, it's par for the course. Nobody likes a tax service anywhere in the world. It's par for the course. What happened here was when politicians side with those people, you then get the disaster that we got. And it was a very difficult period. It was a lonely period. Lots of people didn't want to know us. And media was too ready to believe everything that was there. Media was played. Many parts of the state, police, the prosecution, intelligence, all of this was thrown at us. And we've come through it. I'm not sure that we've actually learned the lessons. I'm still looking for the renewal that we talk about. And for me, it's a very vague and ambiguous term. There's actually no meaning to it. I can't feel it. I can't grasp it. It's not palpable to me. And we can't measure it. So I'm still waiting to see the renewal. Thank you.
And Mr. Pillay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We thank you so much for talking to us. That's Mr. Ivan Pillay there.